So hey guys, today we're talking about Gold Sarcophagus and how this card is honestly one of the most disgusting cards in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of. So first aspect that makes Gold Sarcophagus so disgusting is counterplay. What card can you use to deal with Gold Sarcophagus? So we're going to assume you are going second and your opponent is going first. They're activating Gold Sarcophagus. What can you do about Gold Sarcophagus? Well, the first answer most of you all are probably thinking right now because it's kind of like being played right now specifically, but it wasn't until exactly Malice dropped. You had Lancia, which has the effect of during your opponent's turn, you can tribute this card from your hand or face of field. Neither players can banish cards for the rest of this turn. And this technically will always be able to work against Gold Sarcophagus because this is not a quick play, this is an ignition. So yeah, Lancia will always be able to deal with Gold Sarcophagus. But there is one caveat, being who was even playing Lancia before Malice dropped? The correct answer is pretty much absolutely no one. So anything else that can stop Gold Sarcophagus? Well, there was one card, I suppose. We have aside from Gear Delta, which also absolutely no one played. So at this point in time, if we discount Lancia here, because Lancia is basically beaten to an extent, and even if you did have Lancia in your deck, it's not guaranteed to be in your hand, and you only have 3 copies of Lancia, so assuming you're playing 40 cards, you have like a 30% chance to open Lancia. So I mean, granted, your opponent is not like guaranteed to have Gold Sarc either, but you know, it's not like the most reliable way to really deal with Gold Sarcophagus. And we're just focusing on Gold Sarcophagus, not specifically Malice and Gold Sarc, but there is an aspect to that as well, you know? So with a Gold Sarcophagus, the main thing you can do is whatever Gold Sarc is actually triggering via banish, you can interact with that. So if we do go with like Malice as an example, we have special summon when this card is banished, or if this card is banished, I should say, rather. If that trigger happens, then you would need a hand trap that is capable of stopping this. Now, what hand trap stops a card from being special summoned from the banished zone? Well, we have 2 options really. We have, well, assuming the banish happens, right? Then Lancia is a bit too little too late. But alright, we have Cypher Gear Gamma to negate any monster effect, and this is a monster effect to special summon, so this will stop it. And then we have as well Dominus Impulse, and that's it. This has the effect to stop card effect that includes a special summon of a monster. So yeah, Dominus Impulse, aside from Gear Gamma. Do you see the pattern here? The pattern is that you have basically no cards that really interact well with banish cards, basically. That's the primary issue, I'd say. So it doesn't really matter that it's like Malice per se. If we have Thunder Dragon is a little bit easier because their effects specifically are ashable, which everyone plays at 3, so that's a little helpful. And of course, Lancia, I would argue, is not like a generic. It's more like specific tech, like how you would run Bestials in your main deck, and maybe let's assume you're playing like Snake Eye. Just, you know what? Yeah, just regular Snake Eye with some Fiendsmiths in it. Yeah, or not Fiendsmith, with some Bestials. So Snake Eye with Bestials, no Fiendsmith. You would be running that against Tearlint because that's just completely the logical thing to do because it plays around Called by the Grave as well. And Bestials are just insanely efficient. But then if you were to be playing against like Fire King Snake Eye, for example, well, there's really not a single dark monster to banish, except maybe a Linkuriboh at best, if they do play Linkuriboh, which they're not required to do so in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, there's that, and also Thunder Dragons, going back to this. We have, if this card is banished, add 1 Thunder Dragon card from your deck to your hand, which is ashable. Then we have Thunder Dragon Roar. Special summon a Thunder Dragon monster from your deck in defense position. So yeah, that's also ashable. But if we look for like the Memphis cards, are these also ashable? Let's see. Banish this card during the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished. You and special summon this banished card. So you know what? Instead of Malice, from now I guess we'll refer to Decoy Dragon with its same effect, but only during specifically whose standby phase is that? Is that their player's standby phase? The standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished? Sure. So the Decoy Dragon effect, you know, not really stoppable unless you're playing Impulse. But then again, like Impulse is not playable by every single deck, so the only card that's really playable by more or less every single deck would be Gamma, which is at 1. So that's pretty unreasonable and feels pretty unplayable, I guess, to an extent. So yeah, I would say that sucks ass. Alright. And then in terms of other banished triggers, I think for the most part they're like something like add, special summon a guy from deck. There weren't that many cards that allowed themselves to be special summoned when they do get banished, surprisingly enough. So Ash Blossom does work against these cards, but yeah, if we're focusing on specifically the Gold Sarc itself, you couldn't stop this, right? So if we were using Gold Sarc as quote unquote as intended, so to actually add a card, so let's pretend that there's a card that literally says you win the game. Essentially, the entirety of Exodia can be added off Gold Sarc, right? Let's pretend this is the case. So if we banish, essentially, well, I guess we could if we activate 5 different Gold Sarcs. So let's assume we do that. We activate Gold Sarc 5 times, bashing all 5 pieces of Exodia. And then maybe we'll try to like stall with Waboku and then Battle Fader and stuff like that, right? Sure. Just whatever. So in this case, the only way you can win is if you prevent the pieces of Exodia that are banished from getting added to your opponent's hand. Now, we have to think, what cards can actually interact with our opponent's banished cards? Well, there are like probably 2, I'd say. So we have, I guess, Bestial Dispatter. So if you were able to summon Bestial Dispatter, specifically Exodia is a dark, so you know you could special summon any of the pieces of Exodia to your field, and then your opponent would not have the 5 pieces of Exodia. That would work. And then there would be, I guess, Virtual World Shen, right? Which also affects monsters. So yeah, you can return it to the graveyard. Yeah, when your monster declares an attack, you can return 1 banished monster to the owner's graveyard. You have that effect. So you could move Exodia, any of the pieces of Exodia for that matter, to the graveyard. So that's another one. And then the final one I can think of off the top of my head would be like probably, I guess, Kishira or Iceheart being able to suck up your opponent's like banished cards. But you might have noticed something about these cards and how that they're absolutely not generic, like at all. Well, the most generic one probably being, I guess, Shen, but it has like an awkward level of 9, which kind of sucks to synchro into, and it's kind of a synchro, so that makes it a little bit less generic, I guess. I mean, it's generic to make, kinda, in the sense that you don't need like a virtual world card, but it's still a synchro, so you need a tuner, then you need the levels, and that makes things rough. So yeah. But that's assuming in this case that it's Exodia. So let's assume this time around that the card that's being added, it has the same effect as Exodia, right? And then instead of being a monster, it's just simply like a trap or something. Where if you flip over like these traps or something and they're all on the field, you win the duel. Perhaps we have some effect like that. and we're Gold Sarking to add those cards to our hand. How do you stop this from happening? Well, if we want to be a little bit what's the word, pedantic about this, then maybe like you could negate the Gold Sarc to begin with, but that would require a spell trap negate. Also, this has no hard ones return. Thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, let's just assume they're going first. Then what spell trap negate could you well, not spell trap, but just what kind of negate could you possibly set up for Gold Sarc? Basically, right now at least, eh, those words are scary. Right now, as in maybe in the future, your opponent could just randomly drop some kind of like monster that has some sort of negate on the board, like before you do anything. Now that's horrifying before main phase, but all right. At least as of this exact moment, there's no card that does this, or no deck that does this, I guess. They at least require your opponent to take some sort of action. But yeah. If we were to just Gold Sarc, you have Psyframe Delta, and that was about it. Nothing else really works against Gold Sarc. And then Gold Sarc will resolve in the next 2 turns, unless you can return that like spell or trap or move it to somewhere else. This pattern could technically shuffle that card back, but only if you're able to force your opponent to activate a monster effect. So it would have to be like a mandatory monster effect that you're forcing on them, which I'd argue not very good or not very easy, but all right, that's one possible route you could go. This pattern, once again, is technically possible, but not every single build that plays this pattern would be able to do this, because you basically have to be playing like specifically Kengen Bestials with Dispatter, which it's a bit reaching, I feel. So yeah, I don't think that's like super likely. And then Shenshen now can only return monsters, so a Rysar is probably the most consistent out of the 3 I originally named like 3 cards that could kind of move your opponent's banish cards around a little bit. And then once again, reminder, they're not generic at all. So yeah, Gold Sarc, pretty busted card. And I just recently just thought about this a little bit, and it makes like some sense, but you could probably get away with playing Gold Sarcophagus as like a searcher that can search any card in your deck if you're playing like Paleo, because Paleo is so slow that the duel's not going to end anyways. You're not going to do much, and this can get you literally any card in your deck, which also wild to mention, you know, just Gold Sarcophagus technically could search any card in the game. Just like I don't know, bonding H2O. If I wanted to add this, I can add this. Slifer, right? Yeah, this Slifer, that Slifer, the Slifer trap. I can add all of these. Ra's Disciple, sure, we can add that also. And also, this has no hard ones return, so if I were to loop this, I could banish my whole deck if I really wanted to. Not that it's like particularly useful, but technically you could add your whole deck to your hand in 2 turns. If you did that, like, yeah, pretty much your whole deck. I mean, you'd have to prepare for that accordingly, but you know, completely wild to think about. Just add any card in the game. But of course, there isn't anything that can really search Gold Sarc at the moment. It's really rough thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I guess, because a lot of things are just at the moment, as in, this could change in the future. This might actually be searchable just by something dumb. Like, I don't know, just the random Link 2 or Link 1 being able to search Gold Sarc. I don't think that's like completely out of the question, or just a combo that starts from a Link 1 or Link 2 or something. Man, power creep is crazy. I'm not going to say like it is going to happen absolutely, but would you be surprised? Like, I wouldn't be surprised anymore. So yeah, Gold Sarc. This card is basically just more or less impossible to interact with after it resolves, and during resolution there's really nothing you can do about it, like assuming you're going second into this. So yeah, crazy that this card got put back to 2, considering this also works as like an E teleport, for, I guess, Malice. And Lancia play rate has to drop eventually, and, you know, Gold Sarc has been seeing play, like, recently-ish. I don't remember exactly when, but I think the most recent point I can think of, or like the earliest point in Master Duel that I can think of where Gold Sarc was being played, would be like Thunder Dragon builds and then branded builds. And then after that, the next thing I can remember that started actually playing Gold Sarc was probably Tenpai. Because you can use Gold Sarc to search like your Tenpai cards, I guess. Because they're fire dragons, this can search technically not just Tenpai cards, but like any fire dragon monsters. So, well, there really aren't any super good fire dragon monsters, but yeah, you can just search them, I guess, by banishing Blaster. So, yeah, this is right now mostly just, I think, being played by 3 decks. I would say probably just Tenpai, Malice, and Branded. Aside from that, I don't think it sees too much play right now, but it's mostly, I guess, because the conditions on this card are a bit just brutal to an extent. So, first things first, you need to banish a card that does something, because you're not genuinely ever using this for the add effect, because this is too slow for the most part in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're playing like a deck that buys you a lot of time, like Paleo, I guess, then I could see this going hard being played as like intended when you actually use the effect to add. Yeah, and aside from that, I guess Gold Sarc is like, I wouldn't say like balanced because, you know, no once per turn, which makes this a little bit disgusting. So just for example, if we were to have 3 Gold Sarc, okay, I activate Gold Sarc effect, banish Dormouse. Okay, you impulse this, sure. And I will Gold Sarc again, banishing White Rabbit. Oh, you have a response for this one too, somehow? Gamma on White Rabbit? Okay, sure. And we're just going to, you know, it's interchangeable. They use Gamma, maybe, I don't remember which attribute you can't activate with Impulse. But yeah, let's assume they sequence it, right? Okay, so Gamma on like this, uh, Impulse on this, sure. Gold Sarc number 3, this time I will banish, I guess, March Hare. And then I'll just try to grab back Dormouse. No response. Strange. Wow, no response to that, huh? Then I guess I'll normal summon Dormouse effect. Banishing, I don't know, I guess Pissy Cat, and then Link Climb, Malice combo. You still have technically combo because, you know, no hard ones per turn, and it would just work. And this is assuming you actually have kind of an answer for Gold Sarc. You could have activated a card that actually negates Gold Sarcophagus, like Spell Trap negate, like, oh, actually, yeah, I forgot about these cards. Technically, these cards interact as well, but they interact worse than side frames because you go -2 in hand for them. But yeah, we have like Herald of Orange Light, Herald of Green Light. What deck even runs these? Melodious, I guess. And then we have like Furnace Health. Damn. If I happen to be playing Gold Sarcophagus and like a Vernos Elf player hits me with Herald of Greenlight, then I'll probably normal summon Dormouse or something after Gold Sarc. Truly very epic moment indeed. Okay, so yeah. This card, I mean, right now I think it's still like almost fine. Like it's like still a kind of good card, right? But it's not like broken, but it definitely has the potential to be absolutely disgusting already. So, you know, if we banish, for example, Decoy Dragon, or just any card that you don't have a way to hand trap, then it just resolves and it feels terrible to play against. So, yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.